There you are. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So tonight is the 11th week of our practice period, and it's been an interesting one for all of us. We were at the 7th week of our practice, and then the shelter-in-place order came down, and we kind of pivoted and changed directions. So for the last 4 weeks, we've been practicing Metta, loving kindness meditation. And as I mentioned last week, I had the intention of doing a couple of things by doing that. One is providing people with a practice, or if you practiced before, reminding you of a practice that can have both immediate and long-term kinds of effects, positive, hopefully, usually. And the second, to do it 4 weeks in a row, was to try and help establish that practice, because it takes a little while to establish these kinds of skillful habits. So that's what we did. Tonight, I'm going to kind of hopefully circle back around to the topic of our practice period, which is essentials of Zen. And in week 6 and 7, we were talking about perhaps the most foundational practice of all of Zen, and that is Zazen, or Shikantaza, so the sitting meditation. And we kind of discussed what it is. And tonight I want to just say a few more words, maybe as a reminder, since it's been so long since we've talked about it, to talk about the sort of the intention and the inner state of single-minded sitting, or simply only sitting is a translation of Shikantaza. And then I want to talk about the outer form. So there's an inner form of Shikantaza, and there's an outer form of Shikantaza. And the outer form has to do with how we physically sit, how we hold our hands, how we hold our body, how we touch the ground, how we breathe, that sort of thing. So, so that's my intention tonight. Why don't we start with a period of sitting, and then after the bell rings, we will come back together, and I will share some words. Does anybody have any questions before we start? Okay, so find a comfortable way to be. Let's take a moment to set your intention, and let all that has happened today and in the past, just set it down, let it go. And any thought or concern about what might happen in the future, let that go as well. And allow yourself to just dwell in the present moment, whatever that is like. So let me say a few words about Zazen and Shikantaza. Um, Probably the most essential form in Zen. Dogen says, like the sun illuminating and refreshing the world, this sitting removes obscurities from the mind and lightens the body so that exhaustion is set aside. So, Shikantaza, as we talked about before, um, abiding in spaciousness or simply only sitting or single-minded sitting, it's often translated as. Doesn't only mean sitting still physically, although that's a facet of it. Stillness, we call it spaciousness or emptiness, is essential to both the inner and the outer forms of sitting in this way. So it has to also do with the comportment of our bodies on the one hand, and on the other, the inner stillness or inner attitude of our minds. So there's an inner aspect and an outer aspect to this. And there is a mirroring between outer and inner, where when we're deep into it, one is really a mirror reflection of the other. And when we're practicing deeply in stillness, this sort of still point, our everyday kind of thinking and operation of the mind, our mental chatter is transcended. It sort of go beyond it, and the body sort of, as Dogen says, drops away. And with that, there's sort of I kind of think of it as a dissolution of the ego. We kind of dissolve in a sense and become more permeable. And so that distinction, that mental distinction that we make between inner and outer kind of dissolves. And there is, what's left is sort of like an endless and vast spaciousness, which is the present moment, and it's always there. Sometimes it's referred to as the eternal present. We get in touch with that eternal nature of the present moment. In the past, few weeks, I've tried to convey to you that for Soto Zen practitioners in particular, Zazen is the sort of the cornerstone of our practice. As you may recall, if you were present for the lecture on Bodhidharma, he sat and stared at a wall for 11 years, it said. I know, CJ, that's what you're probably aspiring to, right? Wangpo spoke of the inherent emptiness or boundlessness of our original mind, and realizing, nirvana or satori, sometimes it's called, by quieting the conceptual mind. He said it's by preventing the rise of conceptual thought that you will realize bodhi, realize awakening. When you do, you'll realize the Buddha who has always existed in your own mind. So another way that I think about it is, and my teacher Ian talks about it, is it's sort of like peeling back all of the layers of mind until there's nothing but pure awareness left. So it's not that we're sort of reaching someplace. It's like we're allowing the mind to settle, where we're allowing the obstacles to fall away, and what we're left is our original nature. So in Soto Zen, we sit still, eyes slightly open, facing a wall. We turn our attention inward and let the outer world, our body, our ego, our sense of self, fall away and dissolve. And we concentrate our mind on cultivating this really kind of acute awareness of present moment. So in Shikantaza, there's no specific object. We're not focusing, for example, on the breath or on a mantra or anything like that. We might say that our object is boundlessness or spaciousness itself. I think I might have talked about the metaphor of a train, and the cars on the train are our thoughts, and there's just endless long train of thoughts throughout the day, and Zen is really kind of like focusing on the space in between those cars. So there's a space in between the thoughts. We don't have, if we really slow down and pay attention, we don't have two thoughts at once. We only have one thought at a time. They can come in very rapid succession, and it can seem like we're thinking two things. But if you really sort of slow it down over time through this practice and develop a granular kind of awareness, you'll see in your own experience that we really only have one thought, and that just like as I was talking about the breath, at the very top of the breath, there's a quiet spaciousness, and at the very bottom of the exhale, there's a quiet spaciousness, and usually we don't notice them. But if we try and we pay attention, we can notice them. So that's what we're doing in Zazen. So it's a freeing or going beyond of our sort of normal discriminative kind of discursive thought to our original mind, which is sort of unitary and non kind of binary, non-dualistic. So there is, when we find that still point, there is no longer really a distinction between self and other. And this is the basis of the very deep realization and wisdom of our interconnectedness, that form of being that Thich Nhat Hanh calls interbeing, our interdependence. It's a very, very foundational wisdom teaching in Buddhism, is our interdependence. And this is where it comes from, this experience of boundlessness, or in the Brahma Viharas, the fourth Brahma Vihara is equanimity. You also can have that realization when you experience that equanimity. So really, it's sort of like an opening to kind of pure, or pure sort of a loaded word, an unobstructed view. It's like a cloudless sky, just nothing but illumination and brilliance. So it's often talked about in poetry and Zen poetry and other teachings about a cloudless sky, luminous presence. So the Shikantaza really is, and in the outer form, this outer form of sitting really is a very direct, and it's a very direct expression of our inherently awakened nature, I guess is what I'm trying to convey. Are there any questions at this point about anything I just said?
I have a question.
Yes.
Why does it sound so simple and it's so difficult?
That's a very, very good question, Javier. It's a very good question. It's very simple and it's very natural. As I've said a number of times, this is often called our original face, is how you recognize they're talking about this in Zen. There's the koan, that puzzle. What is your original face before you were born? So it's something that was there before we were even incarnate in this body, before we were even born. This simple awareness already exists and existed. It exists prior to our being born. It will exist after we're being born. And the normal everyday mind is, it's not a bad thing. It's very helpful. We can say the very same thing about the ego. It's very helpful. However, if we're trying to understand this deeper nature, it becomes, at some point, it becomes an obstacle. We need, I've heard teachers say, just enough ego, not to get run over when we're out and about, just enough to help us get through our day-to-day existence. but we come to identify with it, and we come to believe that that is what we are, you know. So we become identified with it, and that's how we think, and so that structures our perception and our thought. And so when we sit and do zazen or some other form of practice, you know, if we do it enough, we will, without a doubt, have an experience where we kind of get to the edge of that, and we realize that there's something beyond it, and there's more to us in our experience than that. We have a sense of primordial awareness, or this luminosity, or this stillness or spaciousness. And once we have that experience, that's really the value of these you know, Kensho or Satori experiences, not to have them and stay there, but to have them and to realize that, oh, there is this whole greater aspect of ourselves beyond our everyday self. So how is it? It's simple because it's always already there, and it's difficult because the ego is so much in the play. So I don't know, it's kind of a long-winded attempt at answering your question, but I hope that maybe we'll shed a little bit of light or get at what you were asking. But you know, the observation is right on. It is simple, and it's so challenging sometimes. But the more we practice, you know, it becomes a little less challenging. So we'll stay at it. Any other questions before I kind of pivot and talk about practical aspects of sitting?
Yes, Jeffrey. You mentioned Thich Han. What was that you were saying about him?
He talks about, and I think he even has a book by this name, he talks about interbeing, which is a foundational interconnectedness between all beings. And in you know, to use the language I was just using, you know, when we walk around in our everyday kind of comings and goings, you know, I'm me and you're you, and that person is that person, and we think of ourselves as separate. You know, we're sort of like these ego islands, sort of, you know, moving around space and time. But underneath that is a really foundational interconnectedness. In Indian philosophy, it's often, and Buddhist philosophy, it's often talked about as Indra's web. So if you want to do some kind of studying, you can Google Indra's web, and that is an expression of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. So if there are no more questions at this point, I want to just kind of shift for a couple minutes and talk about some really very practical things. I want to talk about the outer form now. So I passed out, if you were here, I passed out a copy of Dogen's rules or suggestions for sitting. And they're very sparse, as you know, if you read them. It doesn't say a whole lot about how to do this very important aspect of Zen. But it does mention a couple of things. And one is to have a quiet environment and a comfortable environment, if at all possible, kind of free of distractions, not being hungry, not being too full because you get sleepy, and having sort of Doesn't matter whether you are practicing at during the day or at night, but having a little bit of light. And the posture, our comportment, our physical posture is, you know, it's important to be comfortable, but not too comfortable, you know, because we want this balance between being comfortable and at ease, but also being awake. Now, the Buddha talked about four postures, which are the noble postures of meditation. One is sitting, one is standing, one is walking, and one is laying down. But in Zen, we really emphasize sitting, and I'll just leave it at that. So we are focusing on sitting. So we want to be alert but relaxed, and we are sitting upright with a pretty straight spine. Not like a military spine, not like, you know, but a straight spine. And you turn around and see if I can demonstrate from the side what I'm talking about. Can you? Okay, you can see. So we're sitting on a cushion, right? What this does is it lifts the hips up higher than the knees. I am, whether we're sitting on a cushion or on a chair, the same sort of posture applies. However, we're sitting. So I'm sitting on a cushion in the traditional way. I'm sitting in a half lotus position. It doesn't matter too much how your legs are, whether you're in a full lotus, half lotus, Burmese, whatever style, it doesn't really matter. But what is happening here is I'm touching the ground in 3 places. Both of my knees and my behind are firmly on the ground. As I mentioned before, a tripod is the most stable configuration. So here I am on my cushion, and I'm sitting really on the front third, half to third of the cushion. And what that does is it tilts my pelvis forward, puts a little curve in the lumbar spine, allows my chest to open up. And as they say, you know, have your ears above your shoulders, have your nose above your belly button. So I'm not leaning forward, right? I'm sort of, if there was a string coming out of my head, it would be pulling me up a little bit. So here I am with hopefully a relatively straight posture. And so my belly is soft, so I'm not trying to control my breath in any way. My chest is open. Sometimes I'll lift my shoulders up to my ears and bring it back, and then rest my hands however I'm going to rest them. So you see this posture. Now, the thing about, we don't want our heads tilted forward. We want to back tuck our head back just a little bit. Bring that nose in just a little bit. Eyes down, whether your eyes are open or closed. If they're open, just slightly open with a soft gaze, not really looking at anything in particular, just a nice soft gaze. With my hands, I'm going to turn back around. So, with my hands, it's not really important, you know, whatever is comfortable for you. The traditional mudra is, and the way Dogen describes it in the instructions that I gave you, is doesn't matter whether your left or your right hand is on the bottom. Dogen says, put your left hand and rest your right hand in it. Roughly knuckles on knuckles. And then your fingers, your thumbs, very gently touching. So not pressing in, not apart, just barely touching. So if you and I were together and I was watching you and I put a piece of paper in between your thumbs, I should be able to come and be able to move that piece of paper. That's how light. So just touching. And like I said, this is, I'm showing you the traditional form. What's most important in your sitting is that you find a form that's comfortable for you and your body. So whatever that happens to be. So you've got to be comfortable. That's the most important thing. Is the comfort and the stability of however it is that you're sitting, whether it's on a cushion or a chair or whatever, on a bench. So with your teeth just touching and your tongue just resting against the back of your upper teeth. So just kind of resting on the back where your teeth meet your gums is what is suggested. So we breathe through the nose when we're meditating. If it's possible, we breathe through the nose. If you do use a chair to sit in, I would suggest sitting on the edge, more of the edge of the chair, so that your feet are flat on the floor, so that you are touching in those three positions. And try and resist the temptation to sit back and lean back into the back of the chair. It changes the spine, it changes the breathing. The body, you know, this physical body, our emotional body, if you will, and our mental body are very closely interrelated. So what affects one will affect another. So we'll try a little experiment right now. So if you're in that meditative posture, okay, let's go ahead and get in that meditative posture. Take a couple of breaths. Just notice what it's like, what it feels like. Notice what the breath feels like. Okay, now what I would like you to do is slouch forward and notice what that feels like. See if you notice a difference in your experience. Notice a difference. For me, it's harder to breathe. There's a pressure in my chest. It doesn't feel the same as this openness. I feel more closed in, and it's a little more challenging for my breath to take a full breath. So anyway, you can experiment with that. And so I've said a little bit about the environment, a little bit about our physical comportment, our physical posture, and our intention. And I'll leave you with another quote by Dogen from the instructions in Zazen. He says, "Set aside all involvements and give everything a rest. Do not think about what is good or what is bad. Do not exercise your discriminatory mind or weigh and judge your mind's remembrances, memories, concepts, reflections. Think, not thinking. Think, not thinking. Do not aim to become a Buddha. Take to doing seated meditation as though you were extinguishing a fire upon your head with earnestness. The ancestors of old did not do anything particularly different. They just diligently did seated meditation. So luckily, we don't have to have some sort of abstract understanding. What we're doing is very simple. It's very simple. It's not complicated at all. It's very simple. And we don't need any kind of special knowledge to do it. What we can rediscover is something that's already there. So it's nothing we have to accomplish because it's already accomplished, if that makes sense. It's not something we have to strive for because it's already there. We just find a way to, through this practice, allow what is superfluous and what is obscuring to our vision to fall away. So one of the most common images in the East is a lotus growing from the bottom of muddy waters. And that is a metaphor for our mind. So when we start, we're underwater and it's muddy and it's silty and there are fishes and all kinds of things like swimming by, and things appear and things disappear. And as we grow in this practice, we grow up, we grow up, we grow up, and then we penetrate the surface. We have maybe some kind of experience, some kind of satori experience where we realize that there's something more than just this everyday mind. And then as the lotus blooms from this, from the muddy beginnings, from the muddy water. And it's not that the muddy water and the mud of life and the stickiness and the difficulties, it's not like they're bad and it's not like they're out of place. We need them. We need them for our growth. because this is what allows us to grow. You know, these challenging times that we're in, and these difficult and painful experiences, the dukkha that we've talked about. The first noble truth that there is an inherent suffering or unsatisfactoriness in life. There's nothing wrong with the dukkha. You know, when it erupts, when it shows itself in our life, it's not wrong. It's just dukkha. That's all. It's not even personal. It's just dukkha. It's just the first noble truth. So we're not trying to grow out of this. You know, we're not going to get rid of the mud in our life, but we can realize that there is something very important beyond it, so that we're not so identified with it, and so that we really don't take those things so personally. You know, that the universe is not conspiring against us when something unfortunate happens. It's just that something unfortunate happens. So I think I'll end my comments there. Are there any quick questions or comments before we finish for tonight?
Why why sitting? Why not laying down or standing up?
I'm sorry, one more time?
Yeah, why sitting? Why sitting as opposed to maybe lay down like in yoga or stand up?
It has to do with one, the stability of this. So rather than being upright and on two legs, standing or walking, there are forms of meditation that where we take that pose, but there is a stillness that this allows, and a steadiness, a solidness that this allows. And there is an attentiveness that this posture allows. Whereas, for example, if we're laying down, it's very easy to become quite relaxed. And when the mind relaxes or the body relaxes in that way, the mind often relaxes in that way. And it becomes a little more challenging to concentrate in that way and to hold our awareness in one place. So, you know, like I said, it's not right or wrong to meditate in these other ways, but this is part of the reason why we focus on the posture of sitting. Thank you for that question. All right. Well, it's wonderful to see you all. It's wonderful to be able to be together in this way while we're biding our time to to when we can physically sit together again. I'm certainly looking forward to that day, but I'm also grateful that that we have this, that we have a way to be together like this. So. However it is, whether it's virtually or in person, you know, practicing together is so important. It is to have a group of people come together with a common intention and a common effort is really an amazing blessing for our practice. So sitting alone and solitary has some amazing benefits, and I encourage you to do it. And sitting together as we are here tonight is amazing in other ways. So thank you all for showing up. Thank you for your effort. Thank you for your intention. And I hope you have a safe and healthy and happy week. We will be back next week, and we'll do this for as long as the shelter in place is active. So we'll do this every Wednesday night. And thank you. So I will leave the meeting running if you all want to chat amongst yourselves.
Thanks, Jeff.
Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a good evening.
Thank you. You too.